Did you not think I was done talking about race? Because we ain't. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Thank you for joining me for a very important discussion today. Today we are talking about how it feels to be a black woman in the workplace in the UK. So I have been working since I was 16 and I'm now 20 years old. So I've basically been working like for 4 years. A lot of the experiences that I'm talking about is stuff I've experienced in all of the job roles that I had. My first ever job was sales outreach, and that was alright because I was mainly outside and I had so many other black colleagues. But then my second actual job was at a trampoline park in Essex, which is, you know, a predominantly white area. So obviously 90% if not more of the colleagues were white, and there was only me and my 2 girls who worked there. I believe there was other black people that worked there before me, but they left before I came. One thing that I constantly had to battle in that place was the obsession with asking me about black culture and just essentially stereotyping me. Whenever I'd come in with a new hairstyle, oh my god, I love your hair. They wouldn't even ask for permission to touch my hair. They literally just used to touch my hair and just make weird comments about it, like, oh my god, these braids, like, oh my god, like, are those braids, like, how'd you get them on your head, and like just all these like weird ignorant like comments. It wasn't like they had genuine questions. They were just trying to make me feel like I was so different from them, when actually I wasn't really that much different from them. I lived in Essex. I live in Essex myself. I obviously don't live in deep Essex, so I'm still part of East London, but I live in Essex myself, so like a lot of the music they enjoyed, I also enjoy. They used to ask me stupid questions like, can you twerk, can you shake your bum, and like just really uncomfortable stuff, because I wouldn't go to a white person and say, can you cut shapes, like or can you tap dance, or can you like, I don't ask them questions. I just felt like it was so inappropriate. And one thing, especially in that workplace in particular, I don't know whether it was because there was a lot of white gays there, but they just always used to say stuff like girl and Felicia, like call me Felicia and stuff, and like thinking back on it, it was so cringe. But I just brushed it off because I didn't really, you know, when you're just so tired of the comments and you're just like, I can't be asked to explain, like these people are clearly ignorant, like explaining is not going to do anything for me. However, in that workplace, because like it was quite flexible, I didn't really feel the constant scrutiny about how I looked and stuff. The scrutiny about how I looked and stuff came in my next job, which was for a big corporation, and this is where I experienced a lot of microaggressions and just racial bias. Where I worked, it was the flagship store and it was in Central, so I think I had assumed that, oh my god, it's going to be proper hip and like diverse, even though like the company is not necessarily hip and diverse. I just assumed because it was Central London, it would have I'd have like so many other black people working with me, which I did have black people working with me, but we were largely outnumbered, especially when it came to managers. Like I said in my last video, no black managers, just white managers, so you can already tell the power structure was going to be a bit weird. This place that I worked at, so there was no uniform, just name badges, but we did have to dress smart casual, like business smart. However, I always felt like my outfits were proper scrutinised, maybe because of my body shape, due to like people always over-sexualising black women. I remember there was one manager, her name was Cindy. I'm just going to name her name because she moved back to her country, but she was a raging racist. She was horrible to me and all the other black girls on my floor at the time. I remember one time I was wearing a skirt. It wasn't a mini skirt, it was like an A-line skirt, and I had tights on, and it was, I'm sure it was like an all black outfit because I always wear black, but I was fully covered up. Like the skirt wasn't really that short. I know I have a big bum, but like to me the skirt wasn't really that short. And I remember the store manager must have been like doing a walkthrough, like a walk around the store, and this Cindy woman was like to me, I've just had a word with the store manager and she's just told me that your skirt is really short and like it's completely inappropriate. And she just she smiled at me, and I was just like, that's really not the truth. Like, the whole time the store manager was on the floor, she spoke to this Cindy woman once, and I can assure you it had nothing to do with my skirt. The company was going into administration. They'd already gone into administration, so they had far more worries than my skirt. I just felt like she was constantly trying to nag. Like, I could glance at another colleague and she'd be like, girls, we need to focus now. I remember one time, the way it worked is there was 5 shop floors, but there was 2 floors, one for stock and one for staff. You'd have to go all the way to the 7th floor, clock in, put your stuff down, come all the way back down to whatever floor you worked on. And at that time, I worked on the ground floor. So I remember one time, I was literally like maybe 5 minutes late to the shop floor, but I wasn't late because I clocked in on time, but obviously I had to walk all the way down. We weren't allowed to use customer lifts, so I had to walk all the way down. So usually everyone used to get onto the shop floor at the same time. On this one day, this woman, she was like to me, this is completely unacceptable, you're late. And I was like, but I had to clock in and also put my stuff down and also come all the way down. And she was like, it's just not acceptable. So what's that action that they do? Is it like a warning or something? Bear in mind, I was new, so I was proper nervous. Like, I was proper nervous just to find out that she's being extra, because then I moved to another floor where they literally didn't care. So and I noticed she was like this with all the other black girls, not so much the white girls. Sometimes the Arab or Asian girls, because there was a lot of Asian and black girls that worked on our floor. She was really, really pally with one of the white girls, but the rest of us, she just treated us like absolute crap. Being black in the workplace is constantly having to accept ignorant comments about our country, about how we look, how we speak. Obviously you can see the way I'm speaking now. I'm not speaking in any particular way. Sometimes I sound like I'm proper from East London, sometimes I just sound like I'm from Essex, and sometimes I sound like both, but I'm generally well spoken and articulate. But even still, I would go into work and get people trying to imitate what they think a black person sounds like, or what they think an American black woman sounds like. Obviously I'm not American, and like our cultures are so different, so I'm not obviously not gonna sound like, hey girl, I'm going just go to the shop. I don't sound like that because I'm not from there, I don't live there. I was still working at this place in Central, this retail store in Central, when I moved floors. I moved to the 2nd floor where I was basically part of the lingerie department. My manager there was despicable. I had to complain about him when I left, and the simple fact I had to complain about him when I left as opposed to when I was there will just let you know how much he was able to make my life hell. Initially the store was like going through like a major change in terms of like stock and stuff, and like they'd gotten rid of a lot of people, and they were like really understaffed to the point that people like me, who were just meant to be on the shop floor as sales assistants, were doing stock room jobs as well, and merchandising, and just a lot of stuff that we shouldn't really have been doing. And I remember like I proper put my back into it, and that's why they asked me to move from ground floor to 2nd floor, because they saw how hard I had worked when 2nd floor needed my help. I was only meant to be there for a week, but I obviously ended up being there till I left. If I had known that the manager was like this, I would have stayed my ass on ground floor. This guy, he was a short white gay man, and I say gay because the references that he makes to me won't make sense if he was straight. So for instance, he used to make references to these people he watched on RuPaul's Drag Race, which is a show about drag queens. Do you know how offensive that is to be referred to as a drag queen, as a heterosexual woman? Do you know how offensive that is to be compared to someone who dresses up like a woman, whose mannerisms are dramatic? And I love drag queens. If you know me, you know I'm a RuPaul Drag Race fan, and I had someone constantly compare me and my mannerisms, which he didn't even see because I'm not gonna act how I act outside of work, in work. Compare it to a drag queen. Do you know how crazy that is? And that's the behaviour I had to just sit back, swallow, and just like, I didn't even laugh at his jokes. Like, it's crazy that this is the stuff that he got away with. He compared me to Diana Ross, who I look nothing like. I never wore a hairstyle that even resembled a Diana Ross hairstyle. I never wore an afro. I wore curly hair once, but it was water wave. That doesn't look like an afro. Also, his reference to me being like a drag queen made literally no sense, because I hardly wore makeup to work. I lived about 45-50 minutes, on a good day 30 something minutes from Central, so I really didn't, and I worked full time because I was working during my gap year, so I really didn't have time to put makeup on. So the reference he made to me looking like a drag queen was just like, I don't understand how he got away with that. The thing is, like, even though I didn't complain formally, I complained to other managers and they literally just brushed me off. They said, you know, that's how I want to say his name, Lee, his name was Lee. He was like, they were like, that's how Lee's like, you know, that's how Lee's like. And yeah, like, that's just, his behaviour was just accepted. So he would also call me like feisty and stuff when there was literally no reason to call me feisty. I never refused instruction from him. I never spoke out of turn. I remember one time he must have said that I looked like Miss Vanjie or something like that. I remind him of Miss Vanjie, and I was like, really? And he was like, yeah, see, it's that feisty attitude. And I was like, are you serious? Like, are we for real? Like, are you actually serious? I remember one time I had to go to Birmingham for my friend's birthday. And I said to him, I will not be able to come into work the next day. Bear in mind, I never lied. I never planned to call in sick. I literally made it known I wasn't going to be in work. So, like, unpaid leave. He didn't act like it was okay, but like, he basically just said like, you're not supposed to do that, but all right. But I said, I've notified the relevant people. I notified him with enough time for him to replace me on shift or just switch people around. I did ask around to see if anyone could like swap with me, and they couldn't, which is fine. Like, if you can't cover for me, that's fine. I don't expect people to cover for me at their expense. But I did give him enough notice. I gave him like a week's notice. So tell me why I don't come in. I'm on my way to Birmingham. I'm on the coach. And this guy is calling me like crazy. Like, he's belling off my line. He's like, where are you? I feel like in hindsight, he probably done that to make me look bad in front of other managers. But I was literally like, I texted him back. I said, I told you I wasn't going to be in today, and that was that. Then I think when I came back, he gave me a really long lecture, and I was like, I don't know why you're bothered. I never got paid for that day. It's not like I skived off and I called in sick. I literally told you I wasn't going to be in. And it was very rich of him to do that, because if you knew me, I'd done extra days sometimes. I covered for people. Like, I always had my team's back. I stayed late sometimes. So for him to act like I was like proper like bringing down the whole team, and I feel like so many black employees are made to feel like that. I mean, retail in general is just like, the way they treat their employees is disgusting, but I feel like from the people I've spoken to, the people and the black people that have worked in retail, that's the general consensus. Like, they're always made to feel like they're letting someone down when they don't come in. Even in the retail shop that I worked in a few months ago, that was in Central, like, one time I got my shift wrong and I had just started, and I was literally made to feel like the next day, like, they made me fill out some whole thing, and they were like, so do you understand why like you not coming in is bad for the business? And I was like, oh my god, like, there was literally 20 people on shift, like, you really didn't even need me, like. And you just like, I just proper got made to feel like I was in secondary school or something, and I was like, I'm a big woman, you know. One thing I noticed that they do a lot, especially with black employees, that when you do hard work, they praise you so much to the point that you feel like you have to do certain things. Like, when they ask you to do extra stuff, they ask you to stay behind and stuff like that. Like, you always feel like you have to, or you're doing something wrong. And I say this because a lot of my other, like, when I was on second floor, my other colleagues who are white, they didn't care too tough to stay behind, maybe because they didn't really need the money. Or my friends who were black, who were on the shop floor, like, if they were asked to stay behind, they would always stay behind, whereas our white counterparts would always go home, which is good on them, to be honest. I learnt from them to say no to an employer when I feel like I'm stretched or I'm being stretched. Again, with the whole like doing extra stuff, obviously, like I said, when I was working at this place in Central. I was merchandising. So merchandising is basically when you make everything look nice, like when you sort out the displays and stuff. There is actual visual merchandisers, but obviously I don't know whether they like cut their hours or like just sacked some of them, but I was merchandising pretty much every day, whether that meant moving mannequins. And I'm small, I'm 5'5". I shouldn't really be lifting things, moving mannequins and just rearranging stock. I feel like my black colleagues weren't allowed to step out of line even just a bit. I worked with about 3 other black girls that I can remember and 2 black boys. One of the black boys was literally being bullied by management, and he was such a good employee. He was such a good employee, and I even found out that they sacked him like after I left. And I was just so disheartened because he literally was getting bullied for like, if he would like pick up a mannequin and he'd put it in the wrong place, they'd be like, I'm not gonna say his name, but let's call him Jim. No, let's call him Bob. If he put like a mannequin like at a slightly wrong angle, they'd be like, Bob, you know that's not supposed to go there, come on now. And I'm just like, this is a young boy and this is like probably his most serious job, and he's just here to collect his money, and you lot are proper making him feel like poo. It got to the point that he was scared to talk to me because he didn't want us all to get in trouble. If I even said hi to one of them, they'd be like, come on ladies, focus on your work. Bear in mind, this store was empty, like 24s. The only time it got even a little bit busy was around Christmas, but even then it was empty. Like I said, they were out of business, so like really and truly we could get away with talking and doing the work, but they didn't like to see us enjoy at all. I feel like they were really quick to threaten us with disciplinaries. They just really made us feel naughty, and for me it's like I don't like feeling like that, especially when I'm doing my job, just because I'm talking to someone. And it's not like we were ignoring customers, we were very attentive with our customers. Like I said, I've been working for a long time, so I'm sure I know a thing or two about customer service. I just always felt like there was that looming threat of disciplinary. I feel like it's definitely a power trip for a lot of managers, not even from a racial point of view, but from like, I don't know, I feel like managers are just so horrible. Like I don't know whether they're given like some sort of like training on how to be horrible, but they were horrible for no reason. And like I said, I've been working a long time. I can tell the difference between someone being professional and someone being horrible. Like these managers were literally just trying to exploit their power. Like I said before, they constantly separated us from our other black colleagues, even at lunch. So we would go on lunch, right? We'd all try to get like similar lunch times, and I remember one manager came up to us and they were like, should you all be on lunchtime at the same time? Who's on the shop floor if you guys are at lunch? And I'm thinking, do you actually think we would leave people on the shop, like we would leave no one on the shop floor? There was enough of us to be on the shop floor, but like even towards the end of me being there, they would try and make it like so that our lunches are so far apart. They would make sure our lunches are really far apart so we couldn't go together. And it's like, I'm not even getting paid for that hour, and you are trying to control what or who I sit with on that hour. Like, this is crazy. I never saw them treat my white counterparts like this. Like, they were still horrible to them, but not to this extent. No one can tell me that it's because of the way we behaved, because like I said, we always did extra stuff. They acted like we couldn't work efficiently together, which I really hate, because most of the time when Bob was moving mannequins, so was I, and so was his friend who he knew outside of work. So yeah, and I noticed his friend, who was like extremely, like, they were all well behaved, but his friend, who was even more like in line, should I say, like he didn't get as much slack as Bob did. I saw them as being the same. They really instilled this fear into us of like speaking up and potentially losing our jobs. I know that was a very big fear of mine, and to be fair, it did kind of end up happening. My contract was set to end after 6 months, but like, you know, when you're so used to working in a place, you just get used to the place. You don't really think you'll leave. But what had happened was like a few weeks before they were meant to review my stay or whatever, I started like complaining about Lee, the manager, who was mistreating me and just like being unnecessarily mean to me. Like there's so many stories I have about this guy. Even after I had left, I must have came to visit people at the store, but I wasn't being disruptive. Like I said, there was usually never any customers. I think there was about one customer on the whole shop floor. I wish I had snaps to include so I could show you guys how empty the store was on a daily basis, which is probably why we talked so much, because there was nothing else to do. And that's probably why they tried to keep us busy, because like I said, there was nothing really to do apart from, you know, make the place look pretty and stuff. I came in and I just said hi to a couple of people, was looking at a couple of stuff, and then I said hi to my friend at the time, like this girl that I was close to from back when we were working together. I said hi to her. She walked me upstairs because she needed to get something, and then he comes up to me as a customer, so I no longer work there. He comes up to me as a customer and he's like, "Aram, can you let these people work?" And I was like, I already complained about you as an employee. I'm no longer an employee, I'm a customer. I can complain about you as a customer, so please leave me alone. And he just walked off in a huff. And then the next day, apparently, like during briefing, because obviously I still knew people that work there, apparently during briefing he was like, "I don't care if someone who used to work here walks in, you guys do your job, don't look up, don't say nothing to the person." So I was essentially living in his head rent free. But he was so horrible. Once I complained about him and I sent a really long email, I think he got a warning. He lied on my name. He tried to say to someone that was still working there that I used his sexuality against him, and I've already said I am not homophobic or transphobic. I was just so disgusted that he even tried to say that. But obviously the person who he told knows me, so they were just like, yeah, okay. And he also told this other girl that I used to get along with, he told her that I spoke about her in his letter, and I was like, he told everyone about this this email, like he basically tried to slander me, and he basically tried to tell everyone that I bitched about them in this email. And I was like, the email was about you. Like I sent them screenshots of the email and they were like, oh my god, like he's so crazy, like he's actually mad. I might even do a whole other story time on him because he was such a crazy cuckoo character. I did complain about him in the end. Obviously by then it was a bit too late, like I didn't really get to see him suffer any consequences. I heard he already had like one warning about the way he spoke to certain people on the shop floor, so I think after I sent that email he got another warning, so I think that's why he was salty. Just to wrap this up, I just want to give any like black or ethnic minorities who are working or going to start working, never ever be scared to speak up. It is the law that you cannot be discriminated against in the workplace, and yet it happens. Know your rights, know the laws against discrimination and mistreatment in the workplace. Don't let anybody talk to you anyhow because they're a manager. I know that especially in the workplace, like the power structure can be very intimidating, but go above them then. If that's the case, don't go to someone that's on their level, or don't go to them, go to someone who's above them, or write to the CEO, or just speak up. And every single time an incident happens, make sure that you note it down, make sure it's documented. If they say something to you like, oh, you're gonna get a warning, tell them, well, I want that warning written, and I want the exact reason written as well, just so if anything happens, like there's a bust up, then there's documentation on the build up and what led to it. I really hope you guys found this video insightful. If you want me to talk about any other stuff, let me know. I'm open to speaking about anything, whether it's race related, religion related, sexual orientation related. Just let me know, give me the relevant information and I will present it to you. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to catch you guys in the next one. Make sure to like, comment and subscribe. Bye.